Good evening. Welcome to the October 19, 2022 regular meeting of the Holland City Council. I'm Mayor Nathan Box. I'm calling this meeting to order. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Byrd.
Present.
Freeman.
Here.
Peters. Corbin. Here. Coronado. Here. Arnshorst. Here. Hoekstra.
Here.
Raymond. Here. Mayor Box.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kathy. We're going to begin this evening's meeting as we have for many years. First with an opening prayer this evening by our city manager, Keith Van Beek, followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we would invite you to join us if you're so inclined. Mr. Van Beek, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as said, if you're so inclined, please join me in prayer. Lord, we adore you for, at this time of year, the changes in colors and the majesty of your creation. As we do our work and as we pursue your will, we ask for your blessing, that we consider all voices, that we also listen to what your will is for the best of this community and for our citizens. And we beg upon you to give us your wisdom. Please protect those here that serve, across the state and nation that serve, and especially as we look across this world at an amazing and sad amount of poverty and destruction, that you extend your hand of peace and mercy. Thank you for your blessings. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Van Beek. Next item are our consent agenda items. These are items that are considered to be fairly routine, and they will be enacted in one motion as they have been reviewed by council as part of our council packets. And they'll be enacted in one motion unless a member of the public or a member of council asks to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed in its regular order on the regular agenda. But before we ask that, Kathy, would you please review the consent agenda for us?
4A, absence excused. 4B, approval of minutes, October 5th, 2022 regular meeting. 4C, oaths of office. 4D, written petitions and communications. PA 198 tax abatement request. Power Manufacturing 1886 Russell Court. 4E, electric easements for Howard Avenue Underground Electric Distribution. 4F, electric distribution easements for Washington Boulevard Electric Distribution Construction. 4G, declaration of surplus material. 4H, WRF disinfection improvements project. 4I, East Point Substation System Operations Building and Budget Amendment. 4J, fiscal year 2022 annual report. 4K, claim filed against the city. 4L, redevelopment liquor license request, Garcenet Beacon Candle Company. 4M, tax amendment to Chapter 17 with final adoption November 2, 2022. 4N, tax amendment to Chapter 24 with final adoption November 2, 2022. 4O, playground grant for Moran Park, approval of grant application submittal. 4P, July financial reports. 4Q, acceptance of justice assistance grant. 4R, approved purchase of 4 2023 Chevy Tahoes. 4S, declare items as surplus. 4T, approval of a renewal of airport management agreement with West Michigan Airport Authority. 4U, adopt resolution of intent to acquire parcel 701629180058. 4V, 2023 health insurance rates plan and plan changes.
Great. Thank you very much, Kathy. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed in its regular order on the regular agenda? Seeing none. Is there any member of council that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Yes, Ms. Raymond.
Yeah, item J and O.
So item J, Planning Commission, which will then show up as 12B2, the fiscal year 2022 annual report. And then item O, Parks and Recreation, 12E 3.1, playground grant for Moran Park. Those are the two?
Those are the two.
Great, thank you. Anyone else who would like to have an item removed from consent and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of council in regard to the consent agenda?
Move to approve said consent agenda.
With the changes?
Yes, with the changes.
We have a motion. Is there support? Support, moved by Coronado, support by Byrd. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Byrd?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Corbin? Yes. Coronado?
Yes.
Arnshorst?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Wonderful, thank you. And next item on the agenda is public comment. As a part of every one of our regular meetings and our study sessions as well. As a matter of fact, every open meeting that we have here in the city of Holland is subject to the Open Meetings Act of the state of Michigan, which allows for the public to be able to communicate to council or to those boards, committees, or commissions. We allow for 5 minutes for each person who would like to speak. You're allowed to speak one time. Please note that this is one-way communication. It's an opportunity for you to speak to us. We do not engage in discussion at this time or answer questions at this time, but it gives you the opportunity to speak about anything that you think is important. You're limited to 5 minutes, and there are 3 lights on the dais in front of me. There's a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. The green light means you're doing well on time. The yellow light means you have 1 minute left, and the red light means your time has expired, and we are strict about that, so we would ask that you abide by that. And we will let you know also verbally when your time has expired. Now, having said that, if there's anyone who would like to address council at this time, please come forward. And when you reach the microphone, please tell us your name and the municipality in which you live. So is there anyone who would like to address council? And would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
Ann Henriksen, Zealand. It is always a privilege to stand before you advocating for the citizens of Holland and surrounding areas for their religious rights and freedoms. As you know, we have an area of conflict in the 2020 DEI ordinance and its inadequate protection for our religious freedoms. When the people of Holland can see the neglect, they can only do one thing, and that is to consistently speak out to the city government to rectify the oversight. Remember, you are servants of the people. Your good judgments matter. Your personal opinions, on the other hand, do not. I will address the September 21st City Council meeting. In viewing it, there were some amazing comments to demonstrate the pulse of the public and what has developed from the 2020 DEI ordinance since its adoption. There is no way you would have predicted that the anti-discrimination ordinance for housing and employment would bring a sundry of controversial results that permeates workplaces, funding for special needs people, health as a mental illness, suicide, adjustment surgeries, businesses as in shops and restaurants, media, indoctrination of schools, libraries, churches, families, and even our speech pronouns. In Holland, we are known for being conscientious, so I would expect this of our lawmakers. September 21st council meeting had 2 situations that spoke plainly and considerately of personal faith. One was Reverend Walter Slaughter, who politely said his purpose in Holland was to speak the gospel of Jesus Christ. It was his belief that it was a message for everyone. I discussed with him that this may offend some of the council or those in the audience. He said it was not his purpose to offend, but to say what he regarded as important. Everyone is a sinner, including himself, and he knows that the answer to sin is Jesus Christ and his cross. Even though the camera recording this does not show the expression of the council, the audience did note that what he said perhaps brought offense because of the look on the faces. Near the end of the public comment, a woman expressed she had no intention of speaking until that moment. Her message was sincere about the need to embrace some forgiveness found in Jesus Christ. Her voice raised in urgency as she spoke what she thought was necessary. This is when the looks on the council faces changed, not seen by the camera, but by the audience. Knit brows, disgust, and even indifference. This response is what discrimination looks like. When discussing the DEI's protection of religious exercise, the city attorney, Mr. Vanderveen, admonished the public that the DEI does not protect our religious freedoms against critical reactions, but protects us from actual debilitating discrimination. This is true. Yet a conscientious government has the responsibility to not level a negative response. At the time, you may have thought that this is not the place for a church lesson in a government setting. Yet you boast that you open in prayer, carefully invoking God's guidance. Some may say this is the place for separation of church and state to excuse not allowing the religious freedom of speech. Some may have an attitude that Christians have proven themselves hypocrites and have no place in a city council meeting. Some of you may want political gain by supporting one people group and diminishing the other. Some have said point blank that they are not responsible for the souls in Holland. Some defensively repeat as a government cannot legislate morality, yet they adhere to laws that protect children from pedophilia. This ambiguity is a real mess, which blossomed out of the DEI ordinance that pitted sexual orientation ideology people against our religious freedoms. These freedoms founded this city and caused it to prosper. City Council of Holland, this DEI ordinance has caused unintended, imminent, damaging effects. You must conscientiously revisit the DEI, clean up the injustice that is developed in the city that you govern. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? Seeing none? Oh, I'm sorry, no. Good evening. Would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Jim Story, resident of the Allegan County portion of the city of Holland, proudly. And I'd like to just give you my customary county report. A couple of issues that your county board of commissioners has been addressing. We are well along in the process of deciding to whom to allocate American Rescue Plan dollars that were awarded to us. Early on, the Board of Commissioners decided to have two priorities for the expenditure of those funds. One is installation of broadband throughout our counties, areas that are not served. And currently we have about 12,000 households that either have very weak service or no service. And so we expect that by the end of this year, we will be awarding those funds and helping a company or companies apply to the state for what is the state's portion of those funds so that we can rectify this digital divide in our county. We also decided to spend a portion of those funds to help two of our smaller cities in one township with their municipal water and sewerage system. They declined to use the broadband allocation that we had for each community and asked us to redirect it to those systems that they were building. One issue that has arisen that is of serious concern for the economic life of our county is the decision by a Consumers Energy Company to begin a major extended reevaluation of their commitment to the Calkins Street Dam hydroelectric facility on the Kalamazoo River, along with 12 other such facilities in the state that they operate and have operated for well more than a century. The installation of that dam created Lake Allegan, which is a 1,300 acre lake upon which many people live. And so we have adopted a resolution asking our fellow counties to also adopt a resolution seeking an economic impact statement for the company's evaluation of that. We are hopeful that the State Senate action to approve a Third Circuit judge for our county will be matched yet this year by the State House of Representatives. Allegan County currently has 2 circuit court judges, and we face a serious backlog of people having their day in court, so to speak, with jury trials, and we believe the Third Circuit judge will help us do that. We are optimistic that will pass. And if it does, then we need to face a reconstruction of our county courthouse and county building to make room for the new judge, and perhaps move some of our administrative offices to soon-to-be vacated space at our county services building at our Dumont Lake complex when our mental health agency moves into the rehabbed former Shopko big box store in the city of Allegan. So those are a few things, Mr. Mayor and council members, that we're working on, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions at your direction.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Next item on our agenda, this is one of the fun parts about being a mayor or a council member. Special presentations and recognitions from the mayor or council or city manager, and I get to be the one who gets the treat this evening. As you'll see on your agenda, we have redevelopment ready communities certification by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. But wait, there's more. We just last week also received the Michigan Association of Planning 2022 Planning Excellence Award for Best Practices for our Unified Development Ordinance, wonderfully known as the UDO around here. And it was officially awarded last summer, but received just last week. And there's an over-under on whether I'm going to drop one of these or trip them, but I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to see these. I'm going to strategically place that so Mr. Corbin is no longer on camera. So the larger one is the recognition for redevelopment-ready communities from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And then the one here that's on my left is the Michigan Association of Planning 2022 Planning Excellence Award that we received. I really want to make sure that the general public knows, because I know council knows, but I want to make sure the general public knows the amount of work that goes into a community like Holland achieving the high standards that are necessary in order to receive awards like this. And I'd like to ask Mark Vanderploeg, Mark Cornelis, Steve Peterson, would you guys come up to the podium just for a moment so that you can bask in the glory of the hard work that the three of you, along with other members of our staff, not only our city manager, our assistant city manager, Marianne Manderfield, who's in our public relations department, as well as Amy Sasimoto, who worked through our Downtown Development Authority to amend their bylaws to satisfy the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. We are one of only 63 communities in the state of Michigan, that have achieved the redevelopment-ready community. Well, what in the world does that mean? The Redevelopment Ready Communities is an initiative of the Economic Development Corporation to offer technical assistance leading to certification for municipalities like Holland who want to ensure that their redevelopment strategies are aligned with best practices. And the end goal of that is to being an established redevelopment process that is transparent, it's predictable, and it's efficient. And there were 5 practice areas that they had to meet. Plans and engagement, zoning ordinances and policies, and one of those was the redrafting of our entire zoning ordinance into the Unified Development Ordinance, which, as you can see from the second award that we received here, is considered to be the gold standard for what's out there. And as somebody who was involved on a limited basis in that process, I know personally a lot of work went into creating a document that is incredibly user-friendly, incredibly efficient for the city of Holland, and helpful for our residents. We also had a development review processes that we had to meet their standards. Board and commission operations and coordination, along with economic development and marketing. And among those 5 best practices, there were 30 specific tasks, factors, and indicators that had to be met satisfactorily to achieve that certification. And these factors touched on multiple city departments and impact a wide variety of issues such as capital improvement planning, public participation, site review processes, training of board and commission members, and so forth. So what do we get for this outside of a big, wonderful plaque that we can put here in the city? Well, our developers in the city of Holland will now be able to tell that by seeing that we are a redevelopment-ready community, and with that logo on our website or visiting the Michigan Economic Development Corporation's website, that Holland is a community where they can expect a predictable, efficient process as they pursue development in our community. And those developers may also be able to access incentives not otherwise available within non-RRC communities. So they can achieve help and possibly have the opportunity to be able to get economic benefits. And we as a city can also access additional technical assistance pertaining to site analysis and design, environmental assessment, site marketing and promotion, and matchmaking with developers. Matchmaking with developers, yes, finding sites and developers and putting them together. And the city also can access funding support for various projects and initiatives, such as master planning, which we're going to be looking at that process in the coming year, and that is not available to non-redevelopment ready certified communities. And staff are currently exploring or in the process of applying for 2 such opportunities as I speak. So this was an easy thing to do. Took no time at all, right, guys? No. This process started over 5 years ago. In July 2017, the City Council passed the first resolution. We then, in 2018 through 2022, planning staff, 2018 through 2022, 4 years, planning staff engaged in work to meet or exceed certification requirements, and multiple requirements rested on the final approval of our Unified Development Ordinance. In May 2023, we hosted a visit of 20 Michigan Economic Development Corporation staff. They were amazed and impressed at this community and our processes and our people. They were greeted by me and by the city manager, and subsequently had a walking and trolley tour of various city locations, including our downtown, South Shore Village, and current industrial development in or around M40 and East 48th Avenue. And I would be remiss if I did not remind the public that there has been $2.7 billion, with a B, $2.7 billion of investment in the city of Holland in 2022. And it's still only October. $2.7 billion. We've got a busy, busy staff leading up to these high certifications. On June 16 of 2022, we officially received the certification from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. It's good for only 5 years. And so since this process took 5 years to get here in the first place, get back to work, gentlemen. Yeah. The clock is ticking on you. And then in August 22 of 2022, certification event at the Pocket Park outside of Tulip Time office, where we actually received the award. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank the other members of staff. Thank you to council for supporting this. This is an incredible thing for this community, for development and business development in this community moving forward. I cannot say that enough. Congratulations and thank you very much. I know you all love the camera and the microphone. Anyone want to say a few words? Mark, Steve, Mark.
Just very briefly. So, Mayor, with you kind of going down the hit list of all the things, I'm like, oh my gosh, we did all that? It makes me tired thinking of all that. So, but it was a huge process, but it was immensely worthwhile. It was educational for all involved. Planning commissioner, staff, the general public, going through the UDO sessions, and it's making our community a much better community. And so Steve and I, we went to the Michigan Association of Planning conference last week, and received a few accolades too from folks, and everybody's really impressed. And the big word out on the street is zoning reform, and that communities need to do it. And we did it already, and we're at the front of the pack. So I'm just very pleased, and thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Now, this tees up, I'm going to leave these up here for a minute until Mr. Van Beek actually goes into his presentation. I promise you we did not plan this on the agenda for this timing, but we have a number of PA 198 tax abatement public hearings that we're going to have, and each of these relates directly to development in this community. So, Mr. Van Beek, I'll let you start with item 7, and you can take these in whatever grouping or individually, however you would like, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You kind of stole my segue there. It is a good night when we know that we're about to make recommendations to you on 5 different items relating to 4 different companies that are all investing more here in the city of Holland. That's a good night. Instead of doing kind of this little speech that all of council knows and some of you know that I usually go through with these tax abatements, I'll do it once on the front end, and then we'll take each item individually to both have the public hearing and then have you have the opportunity to ask specific questions of the applicants, but then also ultimately take action. So tax abatements, a lot of times in my career, I've found that people don't understand it, and sometimes and we're going to be throwing around numbers, 2.35 million and 823,000, and sometimes people hear that number in a tax abatement and they think, oh, that's the amount of taxes that the city of Holland gave away to this company. Like, wow, what's that about? And I always like to take educational opportunities to remind really what's in there. And when the numbers that you hear tonight that we present about the investment, that's the investment that these companies are making in the community. And it's kind of comparable maybe to all of us of the investment of the cost of your home. Sometimes though, it might be even that it's real property, but they might also be investing in other things within their facility. But the tax abatement, let's just use an example of if it's $1 million that they're investing. In Michigan property tax law, that means that you take roughly half of that, and that's what you pay taxes on. So that's one thing to remember. The other thing, as I think others have picked up on, is I always like to say, do you want 100% of nothing, or do you want 50% of something? And ultimately what these Act 198s are, and it's a public act, number 198, and it's an abatement that's available from the state that allows us to partner with businesses that are saying, hey, we want to invest in the city and invest in their employees and invest in our citizens. And what happens is, if they would make that investment somewhere else, we would get 100% of nothing, right? But these abatements, what it allows is if they make that investment here in the city of Holland, we're giving them a 50% break on the amount of taxes that they would pay over typically 12 years. And then we get 50% of something. We're getting those taxes that they're paying on the additional investment that they're making. And I know you all do a great job, and we ask questions in the applications. And one of the many things that we ask in return, that I think we have companies that meet this evening, is we do ask that they are good corporate citizens and maybe invest in kind of the life of the larger community. But most importantly, we ask that they're good employers, that they pay good wages, and they take care of benefits. So that's kind of the overall description that I'll make about what 198s are in total. And you'll always see in the packets when these go before you, and they're available for the community also, where we do those calculations of what's the investment and then what's the planned out amounts of taxes that they would pay over the 12 years, and then again, what's that abated, that relief on taxes that they get because of the action that you may choose to take this evening. From Lakeshore Advantage with us tonight are Mason and Ken, and they'll answer any technical and other questions that you might have. And then again, we have representatives from each one of the company. We appreciate Lakeshore Advantage. We're an investor with Lakeshore Advantage, and they really act as the go-between and the representative for these companies as it relates to these applications and other matters for business. So first up tonight, we have Coops Incorporated, who is looking to add to, quite frankly, a pretty impressive campus and set of investments and employees that they already have on Productions Place. And specifically, they are making a $2.35 roughly $1 million investment, most specifically in about 14,000 square feet of office space that's within a larger 41,000 square foot building. And in their application, they talk about over time adding about 35 new employees with this investment. And with us, we have their controller, Kurt Skur, and I hope I have this right, I think Eric Steenwyk, who is their Director of Strategic Growth. I love that title. So with that, I'm not sure if Lakeshore Advantage is going to come up every time, but I would invite both Kurt and Eric to come forward and present anything else about the company and this particular project, and then also are available for questions from council.
Thank you, Mr. Van Beek. And I just want to make sure the applicants understand, public understands, and that council's got a clear understanding of the process that we're going to go through. We have 5 of these, and so we'll do presentation from staff and applicants and Lakeshore Advantage if they want to as well. Give you guys the opportunity to explain a little bit about yourselves. Other applicants, pay attention. Opportunity for council to ask questions of you folks. Then we will do a public hearing where members of the public have the opportunity to speak on each one of these applications if they so choose. We'll do an individual public hearing for each one. After the public hearing is closed, I'll ask council for a motion, and then we'll vote, and then we'll move on to the next one. So sorry that you two had to wait through that explanation, but welcome, gentlemen, and would you please let us know what it is that you're going to be doing?
Yeah, I can talk that through. So I'm Eric. I'm the one with the fun title that you talked about, and it is a pretty cool title. I have a fun job. So I've been working at Copes for 21 years. It's a great place to work. Love working there, and we have a big culture of growth, and so part of that is, growing into new industries that we serve. Part of it is growing into new regions, stuff like that. A big part of it is just growing the people and our capacity, and so that's what this project is about. We need more manufacturing and engineering space in Holland to support our growth strategy, and that involves this building space and then plus hiring the 35 people we mentioned earlier, or that you mentioned earlier. So that's the plan. So this is going to be this is a facility we bought a while back, and we're outfitting the shop and the office to get ready to go for this project. Did I miss anything that would be key to mention, Kurt? Do you want to?
No, I was going to add that at the end too. We've owned it for a little bit, and this is a building kind of retrofit update. So.
Great, thank you. Questions the council may have for the applicants? Yes, Mr. Hoekstra.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I'm going to ask you a question that has sort of historically become a question that we ask folks who come to us with these applications. As Keith so well explained, this is basically a bargain between the city, the citizens of the city, and you to forego part of your tax burden, which you pay a lot more than most of us do anyway. But in return for that, our hope is that your success will reflect a benefit to the city. I won't say trickle down because I hope it's a lot better than a trickle, but that those economic benefits will affect the community through wages and so forth. So if you're willing, I'm interested to know if you'd tell us what your wage scale is, because a livable wage is one of those things that makes for a good community and a sustainable one. So if you're willing to talk to us about that,
Yeah, we can. So it really depends on the role. But there's kind of two main categories. One is on the engineering side, and we expect we pay engineers anywhere from $60,000 to $110,000 a year. On the other half would be on the manufacturing side, where we have machine builders and other skilled trades, and they're going to be making in that $18 to $33 an hour range is where they're at. So
That sounds not bad.
they'll be fine.
Yeah, and you're, from what I'm seeing here, you're looking at potentially 35 additional
Yeah.
jobs?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, just want to commend you for that. I'm not sure I'm going to repeat this question as we go through all these, because that's a lot of talking.
I'm sure that the applicants have heard that that's something we may be
Yeah.
interested in, so they may want to
That's the
include that
hope.
in their presentation.
We may have
yes.
been warned.
Yeah, okay. Well, congratulations. It's great to see your success here, and wish you the best in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions from council members? Yes, Mr. Byrd.
First of all, congratulations. I'll turn my mic on. Congratulations on the growth. You guys were speaking a little bit about your growth strategy. I like that. I'm interested in hearing about it at maybe a different time or something. But I guess you guys have, let me ask this question. How many times have you guys been in here in the last 4 years?
Ooh, you're gonna know that
For
better.
abatements, I want to say this is our third, I believe.
Okay, yeah, that, to me, that's uncommon. That just goes to show that you guys have a plan in place and you've executed that plan to efficiency. And that's good for the community. That's good. We were at one time, I don't remember how long ago, but we were the #1 area for starting up businesses. And I know that's not starting up business, but that's an extension of what you currently have. So that's pretty awesome. Oh shoot, I had something, I lost it. Congratulations. I guess I'll figure it out eventually.
Well, and you're welcome, and anybody else is welcome for a tour at any time, and we can talk through growth strategy and stuff like that. So anytime you want to swing by, let Kurt or I know. We'd love to show you around and explain some of that stuff to you. And maybe you'll think of your question then.
I remember already. So 35 additional employees, correct? That's how many will be on board? So through the whole process of you guys growing, you've added employees, correct? Has it been difficult for you guys to obtain those employees?
I'm going to say I don't know any different. So I can't tell you. All I've done is added employees at Copes, and that seems to go well. And when we're in conversation with other companies, it seems like it goes a little easier for us, but I've worked 21 years here, so I have nothing to compare it to.
Got it.
But it seems like when we talk to other companies, it goes quite well. We do have positions every now and then that we struggle to fill a little more than others, but in general, we're able to hire what we want when we want. So, and a big part of this is having a great place to work, right? People want to work by
Culture.
Copes, a great culture, a lot of opportunity to grow individually and stuff like that. So it's a desirable place to work at.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
I've got the privilege of sitting down next to the HR group at work, and Eric is kind of oversees that group, and I'll say it doesn't come without effort, though. You know, it may not have a problem, as you say, but there's a lot of effort in that. You know, one, finding good quality talent, and two, you know, to find people that fit the culture well, to be able to maintain, you know, the vision of the company. It's a pretty big deal for us, so. Thank you.
Ms. Coronado?
So, thank you. Congratulations, Coop and Company. So, how many employees do you currently have?
In Holland, do you remember? I think of it as total
Just
whole
over
place.
200,
200, yeah, okay.
210.
And these positions, so are they hired in, because some companies use like temporary services, so do they automatically get hired in, or do you work with a temp agency? And
No, these will be full-time hire right away, or we wouldn't typically do temp agency. So it's either going to be full-time directly in right away, or they're going to be like internships and co-op students from universities that'll work part-time by us as they're going through the schooling. Then when they graduate, we'll hire them full-time.
okay, so breakdown of, you said engineers and
Yep. and like skilled trades.
Skilled trades,
Yep.
so what's the percentage?
About half and half.
Okay. Well, awesome. Congratulations for your growth and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now open a public hearing on the P-198 tax abatement for Copes Incorporated, 864 Productions Place. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address council in regard to this particular item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of council in regard to item 7A?
Move to approve 7A.
Moved by Byrd, is there support?
Support.
Support by Coronado, any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Freeman.
Yes.
Corbin. Yes. Coronado.
Yes.
Arnshorst. Yes. Hoekstra.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Byrd.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Wonderful, thank you. Item 7B, P-198 tax abatement for Trigon Steel Components Incorporated, 1448 Lincoln Avenue. Mr. Van Beek.
I'll make the speech shorter this time. So we are very pleased. Isaac Court is here. He's the president of Trigon Steel. And in this application, as you've seen, we're looking at, I'm going to call it a $200,000 investment in air conditioning, bathroom, and other rehab in their 29,000 square foot building, which is attached to a hope to hire 5 to 10 employees here over the next set of time. And Isaac, why don't you come on up and tell us about your company and about these plans?
Yeah. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Isaac Court. I'm a partner at Trigon Steel Components. We relocated from Zeeland to Holland back in 2017. We built our facility on Lincoln Ave. At that time, we had 18 team members. Currently, we have 35. And this is really just a change or upgrade in our break room areas and a bathroom and air conditioning in the manufacturing space. Really to provide a better environment for the team members we have, as well as a larger capacity in those areas for more team members. So, conservative 5 to 10, I'm hoping for, 15 to 18. We'll see how that goes, but currently that's where we're at.
Wonderful, thank you. Questions from council members? Mr. Hoekstra.
Yeah, no inquisition, but when I was in the shop, I wish I had air conditioning, so you go.
Any other questions, comments from council members? Wonderful, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will now open a public hearing in regard to the PA-198 tax abatement for Trigon Steel Components, 1448 Lincoln Avenue. Is there any member of the public who would like to address council in regard to this particular item? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period, or the public hearing. What is the pleasure of council?
Move to approve the Trigon Steel component abatement.
Moved by Vreeman. Is
I'll
there
support
support? Support by Hoekstra. Any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Corbin. Coronado.
Yes.
Arnshorst. Yes. Hoekstra.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Byrd.
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Item 7C, PA-198 tax abatement for West Michigan Plastics Incorporated, 5745 143rd Avenue. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, and not to be outdone, we have our third one this evening. And Tom O'Neill is here. I understand he's landlord and business partner in this venture. And here we have a $823,000 investment. It's a $13,000 addition to what they currently have out there, which is a little over 75,000 square feet, and looking at adding maybe 6 new employees. But if I have any of that wrong, I'm sure Tom will come up and tell us more about the company and the project, and welcome.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. West Michigan Plastics, I'm Tom O'Neill. We represent the southernmost portion of the City of Holland's manufacturing sector. Lamar Park was basically, we were the first ones in there. We bought it and then developed along with Dick Darby. And so that was 20 years ago. And We're a small company. We put up 16,250 square feet and got a tax abatement for that. And then, of course, right in the 9/11 struggle, we persevered here. And what we're doing now is we're literally doubling our manufacturing square footage. So we're putting 13,000 square feet on. And just looking at how this goes, we anticipate we'll be bringing 6 new people on board. We'll probably have 5 of those being general labor in the $15 an hour range, something to that effect, and then probably 1 supervisory person. We are horizontal injection molders. We heavily automotive focused. Both my partner and I are engineers by background. We love what we're doing. City of Holland's been very good to us over the years here. Every time we try to do something, they welcome us, and it's just a great feeling. We wanted to be in Holland. We were in Fillmore Township. We were in Holland because we wanted the electric savings. Injection molders, they chew up a lot of money in electricity. So for us, that was huge. Our building is going great. Good contractors, good people working. Most of our people that come to work for us, they stay many years. And we're a smaller company, but we like what we're doing. So that's
Great. Thank you. Questions from council members? Yes, Ms. Raymond.
Yeah, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
your expansion. What, so doubling your space, your manufacturing space is pretty big. What do you think has happened recently that has allowed you to expand your business so much?
We have needed to expand for some time. We are really crushed for space, and we just got to the point where we just had to do something about it. Much of what we're starting out is large racking for automotive windows.
Mr. O'Neill, could you speak into the microphone? We got folks listening at home who won't be able to hear you otherwise.
So a large part of what our new addition will be doing is storing a returnable racking. We ultimately will push molding machines back into that area, but right now it's more or less warehousing. But you're asking, what was the, we just, the business just comes. I mean, if you do a good job, it just seems like they just chase you down. We don't have any sales staff, if you will. We're just 2 guys with engineering background molding plastic parts. So if that answers your
Yeah,
question.
thank you. Yes, sure does.
Yeah, questions, comments from council members? Yes, Ms. Coronado.
Congratulations on your expansion. We're happy to have you, so keep up the good work, and that's great that you don't have to advertise for work, and it just comes to you, so that's, a gift, so keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments from council members? I just wanted to, again, congratulations, and also wanted to thank you for being an electric customer from the Holland Board of Public Works. It's great that you probably unknowingly gave us a great advertisement for our wonderful electric rates that we have here in the city of Holland. We're glad that you're able to be here, and we're glad that you're able to benefit from that, because that's just one of the other ways that we do our best to support the business community in this area as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Great, thank you very much. I'll now open the public hearing in regard to the PA 198 tax abatement for West Michigan Plastics Incorporated, 5745 143rd Avenue. Is there any member of the public that would like to address council in regard to this particular item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of council in regard to this item?
Move that we approve the PA 198 tax abatement for West Michigan Plastics Incorporated.
Moved by Aaronsource, is there support?
Support.
Support by Coronado. Any discussion from council? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Coronado?
Yes.
Aaronsource?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Corbin? Yes. Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Item 7D, Plant Rehabilitation District for JR Automation Technologies LLC, 40 East 64th Street. Mr. Van Beek?
And just to make it a little bit interesting, we're going to twist this one a little bit for you. So what you have before you is actually two different steps. Public hearing attached to both separately, and then obviously consideration and potential action by you on both. And the first step is actually to create what's called a plant rehabilitation district. And just shortly, just so you know, this is a very well-known and successful local company, JR Automation, that it's fantastic. They have a footprint, but they have a footprint primarily that's been outside of the city. But they took over a business and a facility that's in the city and really need to go through this process of having a district that allows them to go in and in a different, more involved way, really invest money into that facility. And only by establishing first the district and the consideration and action by you, then that would allow them to apply for, and theoretically at this point, receive a tax abatement for the investment that they're putting in. So that is kind of the two-step process that is before you this evening. If there's more specific questions on kind of the technicalities of that, that's where I'm glad that Ken and Mason are here, that they can walk you through that if you have those questions beyond what I just described. And from JR Automation, we have Sean Ryan, who's their controller, and Joel Cooper, who's the director of facilities and health, safety, and environment. So I think what we'll probably do is ask first the representatives from the company to come up and maybe just give a description of the project, even though that's more slanted for the second item before you, just so you know kind of what this all entails in context. And then, council, if you have any specific questions about the plant rehab district, then Lakeshore Advantage is here to help us with that.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to suggest one presentation from the applicant, and then public hearing on the rehabilitation district vote, and then public hearing on the PA 198, and then the vote. So, great. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. So about a year ago or 10 months ago, Genzing Steel, the former tenant and owner of that facility, kind of ceased to exist. They stopped their operations, and JR Automation elected to buy their assets, by the former assets of Genzing Steel. We also signed a short-term lease as we went through a process of determining what to do with those assets long-term. Throughout the next few months, we decided to actually stay at that facility. There's some potential there. There was also a need, and it matched our plans to vertically integrate and grow a certain portion of our business in that facility. Worked out really well for us. It came with a few gremlins, as we like to call it. The building had been somewhat neglected for the past decade, and part of our plan is to really rehabilitate that building and bring it back to life. We are building there today probably one of the premier machine shops and fabrication shops in Michigan. It's going to be, and it already is becoming, just state of the art. Sean's the numbers guru, so I'll let him speak to the specific numbers of the project.
Yeah, so we are moving from.
Could you please step up to the microphone? Yeah.
We're moving from a facility that was about 30,000 square feet prior, upgrading to a facility that's over 100,000 square feet, looking to add about 140 people over the next few years. This, as JR Automation, is custom automation. A lot of what we do is people bringing in an object like this microphone and asking us to build a line to assemble it, and having a on-site fab and machine shop allows us to turn these custom products, these fixtures, everything quicker, and allows us to move more business and thus hire more employees. So you guys probably remember we were in here for, I don't know, it was probably 8 months ago for the Waverly facility. That's going fantastic, and you know, there's still potential for us to invest in the future in the city of Holland.
Great. Thank you. Questions from council members? Ms. Ernsthorst?
I don't know if I'm ready for this, but I had with your application and the previous applications, and between Councilman Hoekstra's question and Councilman Bird's question, you're adding people, 140, and you know that, and the other people, you must, is it a guesstimate, or do you kind of know exactly where they'll go?
No, we know where a lot of them will go. A lot of them are going to feed. So we also had a fire at our main facility that wiped out our initial fab machine shop. So we're in the process of, we've already purchased about $4 or $5 million in brand new state-of-the-art equipment. We have commitments to do, POs already placed for an additional, basically we're going to fill this facility up. And there's going to be a significant amount of people that will be in this facility working on the fab machine side, but also due to the increase in production capabilities, we'll also be hiring engineers, and it really kind of will flow through the company in its entirety.
That's good. That's a good sign. It's good for us as well. And as a council, and maybe manager and mayor, so when someone says they're going to hire that many people, do we care if it's really 140 or 145 or 130 or 10? And is there any follow-up with that kind of thing?
Yes, so primarily this is a state law. So there is reporting that they're required that comes through us, but ultimately there's a good amount of checking on those types of things at the state level. Good question. Do we care how many employees are attached to this? You know, I think there's different periods in time. If I've seen a lot of these, sometimes it's we're making this investment because otherwise we have to just retain the employees that we have. Quite often that's good, right? But when you're adding employees, and especially when you're hearing a project like this that maybe has a whole range of employees, from people working on the production line, but also includes supervisors and engineers. You know, I don't think there's like a criteria that we use of it needs to be certain dollar amounts and this amount of jobs or anything like that. But I think those are good things to think about. Ultimately, expansions, good paying jobs, good companies. I think those are the types of things that we look at. But again, this isn't just a city approval. This then goes to the state, and then there's an amount of reporting. And even in the agreements, there's like, we don't always like to talk about these, but it's a reality, and I've gone through these. There's clawback agreements too, where if there is kind of a failure to perform under some of these contracts, there's the ability to take back the abatement and even claw back some of the tax abatements that were given in time. So not bad for the companies to be reminded of that, but I think that's where it's a partnership. Sure. And as you've all talked this evening, it really is a give and take between successful companies and successful communities.
Agree. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions, comments for the applicants? Yes.
Yeah,
Ms. Freeman.
I'm gonna ask about that plant rehabilitation district. Why do we need one for this particular project?
Ken Rizzio, the resident expert. Why don't you go in more detail than what I can provide?
Yeah, I was waiting for that question. I was hoping to get an opportunity. Right now, there's an industrial development district there. So the prior manufacturer, no doubt, was before you and received tax abatements. The 198 traditionally provides for like a new expansion, and the three tonight were new growth. Now this plant rehabilitation is taking an existing building and essentially rehabbing that existing building. So you're not creating new square footage. You're working within the walls of the building there and doing the building improvements. So the state says If we're gonna do a project like that, we treat it a little bit different. And we also want a district in place, so like the IDD that was set up originally, now they want you to set up a plant rehabilitation district, and the application comes in as a plant rehabilitation district 198. And it works a little different. The taxable value that's there before the expansion, before the $3 million investment, that's gonna be frozen. So when you approve an abatement for 12 years, the taxes, the full millage, less the, SCT, will be applied to the original taxable value. So essentially, the $3 million is getting tax exemption for that time. So that's how it's different than a traditional 198. But you need to set that district up for the plant rehab. It doesn't work within an industrial development district, it's just a formality.
Other questions or comments from council members? This is not only for JR Automations, but for other applicants as well. I waited until the end because I wanted to express this to all the folks, and I see West Michigan Plastics has left, but I'm sure that our friends at oh, no, I'm sorry, you're there. I was one of Trigon Steel left us. But I'm sure our friends at Lakeshore Advantage will pass this along as well. We've been congratulating these folks. Thank you. I think you deserve our thanks as well for investing in our community, investing dollars, investing time, and investing in people. Our corporate community is the lifeblood of this community. We wouldn't be here without you. We wouldn't be here without the people that you employ. Not only are we providing a tax abatement to you, but one of the things that I think sometimes gets lost in this is those new jobs are new dollars that come into the community as well. The wages that those folks are going to be earning are going to be spent at all kinds of different businesses around the community, and that is a real multiplying effect for this community. So incredibly important that we as a council, and I'm so glad that as we do these votes, I don't want to be presumptive about the JR Automation one, but everyone up till now has been 9-0. Which means that we all recognize the value of this in the community and want to be incredibly supportive of our business community. So thank you, and thanks to the other applicants as well as congratulations on not only redevelopment, but also on the improvements that you're making. So any other questions or comments from council members?
I had
Yes,
one
go,
question.
Ms. Coronado.
Welcome back, and it's good to see you guys within a short period of time, not even a year yet. So is this new growth, or is it because of the fire that happened on Waverly?
It's, well, both. It's, the fire happened on the north side of Holland.
Oh, okay.
And it is, part of the reason we're making this move is because of that. But also, we had made a plan to grow our business out into 2025 and beyond. And the vertical integration and growth of this part of our business was one of the key factors that was going to drive our growth to $1 billion and beyond. So it was a bit of timing, but really both factors played in here.
Yeah, and to the Genzink Steel building was kind of a blessing in disguise with them going out of business. Unfortunately, their facility is set up. Well, it's not a very nice facility right now, which we're fixing, but it's set up to be in a floor plan that we need for flow through the business. So it kind of just was the perfect storm, and we decided to take the lead.
Well, awesome. So that's sustainable. So we're reusing, a building that's been there and then, making it better and improved. So does this exponentially move up your growth to 2025, or is now you have another goal?
You sound like our owners.
Yeah, we have pretty lofty goals to continue to grow. I mean, as you know, we're owned by Hitachi as of 2019, and they really just are push us to get bigger and better, and also just continue to develop as we go along. So I've been there 4 years, and it's been fantastic so far.
Well, we wish you the best and continued growth and success to, the sky's the limit, right? So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from council members? Seeing none. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. We'll do first we'll do the public hearing for the Plant Rehabilitation District for JR Automation Technologies. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to address council in regard specifically to the Plant Rehabilitation District for JR? Seeing none, I will close that public hearing. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the Plant Rehabilitation District for JR Automation?
Move to approve.
Moved by Aaronsource, moved by Coronado.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Second, support.
Support by Freeman. Any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Arnshorst?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes?
Corbin? Coronado?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. And then let's move right on to the public hearing for the PA 198 tax abatement for JR Automation Technologies. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak to council in regard to that particular item? Yes, please come forward. And would you please state your name and municipality for the record, sir?
Jim Story, City of Holland, Allegan County portion, and I just want to say I just was adding up the employment numbers for all of the abatement, and that's nearly 150 new employees. And on behalf of Allegan County, in which all of these facilities are located, I want to say thank you very much for that investment. And as the last chair of the former Tulip City Airport Advisory Board and the first chair of the West Michigan Airport Authority, I noticed all of these are close to our airport. And I can't help but say that's the kind of growth that lets them compete in the world around us. So thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who would like to address council in regard to this particular item? Seeing none, I will close this public hearing. What is the pleasure of council?
Move to approve the tax abatement for JR Automation.
Moved by Vreeman. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd. Any discussion from council members? The only comment I want to make, in addition to all of these being in Allegan County, I believe these are all in Ward 5 as well. Just wanted to give some props to our Mayor Pro Tem. Kathy, would you please call a roll?
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes?
Corbin? Coronado?
Yes.
Arnshorst?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. And that is it for our tax abatements for this evening. Item number 9, written petitions and communications. In addition to allowing the opportunity for the public to address us directly during our council meetings, we do also have an email address where you can send us your comments. Council reviews those in between our regular meetings, and then when we receive them, we accept them into the record. We do not read them out loud, but accept them as part of the public record. We do not have any this evening, but I always like to point out to the public, you can send us an email at public comment at cityofholland.com. That's public comment at cityofholland.com. Next item on our agenda would be item 12B1, Planning Commission. Text amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance, for which we received an award earlier this evening. This is number 6, with final adoption slated for November 2 of 2022. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. Yeah, what better way to celebrate our award than to work on the Udo? Are you still driving?
Yeah, why don't you just tell me when to
All right.
I'll follow you up.
Yeah, and I apologize, Mr. Van Beek, for not passing this to you first, but Steve was on his way up to the podium. All right.
Yeah, so just a few items to go through. I would put this in the mix, like the last couple rounds have been kind of a mix of housekeeping as well as a little bit more substantive. So there's kind of a mixed bag with this as well. So this first one is probably going to take the longest, so just bear with me. We're making some changes to the airport overlay zoning district, so I wanted to give a little bit of more background with that. What you're looking at on the screen is a snip of the zoning map, obviously focused in on the airport. The airport zoning district is that green area sort of in the middle. And then surrounding that is the industrial zoning district in the gray. And then obviously we've got some others further out. But what I wanted to draw your attention to is those cross-hatched areas. The airport overlay zone is broken up into these 6 different zones or areas that we call them. And so what you see at the ends of the runways, area 1 is the areas immediately at the end of the runways. And I really am saying the runways because even though the north-south runway isn't there, we have to coordinate our zoning with the airport's official airport layout plan. So with their north-south runway in their plan, we have to account for that. So that's why those overlays look the way they do. So we've kind of have this area 1 right at the end of the runway. You have area 2 that's just beyond that. Area 3 are sort of those cones, areas to the side. Area 4 is an extension basically of the runway at the furthest ends of these overlay zones. And then area 5 is, I guess what I would describe as the airport. That's where the runways, the terminal are located. So that is area 5. And then area 6 are sort of the perimeter area around that. It's actually the only one of those little sub areas that isn't cross-hatched around there. So just wanted you to have that background. I know several of you are familiar with this, but just as we go through this, I thought that would be helpful. So this is the table that we use in the airport overlay zone that talks about what the uses that are permitted in those little subzones. So in those columns, you have areas 1 through 6. So what's a little bit different about the airport overlay zone, it's a little bit further restricted, as you can imagine, from what just our zoning has on there. So again, kind of paying attention to that area 1, you can see there's not a lot of uses that are permitted there. That's the area right at the end of the runways, not a big surprise. Area 2, there's a couple more uses that are permitted. The P's are the permitted uses. And then the other column that I wanted to draw your attention to is area 5. So area 5, you look at the table and you think, oh, well, there's a lot of uses permitted in there. I know it's a little bit hard to read on the screen, but the footnote there is telling you that you can't have anything even coming out of the ground if you're, until you're more than 500 feet away from one of these runways. And then the formula works that you have to be another 7 feet to get 1 foot out of the ground. So the example that we use in that table is you have to be 640 feet away from the runways before you can have a 20-foot tall building. So again, just kind of want to point that out too. So the amendment that you have in front of you, you can kind of see there's a couple different colors there. Our attorney's office really was instrumental in putting this together, but you can see as we were kind of going back and forth, there's even some amendments of the amendments as we were kind of working through some of this language. The meat of it is in that paragraph 4. So kind of going back to this sort of economic development idea, we wanted to create some flexibility with the overlay that really wasn't there before. And so what that paragraph 4 is essentially saying is, you know, if these things, if there's a use that isn't permitted in there, if the airport were to sign off on something and tell us that that would be, whatever somebody was applying for would be consistent with their airport layout plan, that then they could come in and apply for site plan approval through the city. So the example, as we look at, could you back up 2 slides? So again, you kind of look at this, so picking on that north-south runway, if we had something up on a vacant lot off of Veterans Drive in that CMU zoning district, maybe a warehouse, you look at that table, warehouses aren't permitted, and if the airport were to sign off, that would allow somebody to apply for site plan approval through this amendment. Another example might be pointed out earlier, that gray shaded areas, our industrial zone. Our industrial zone allows for 60-foot tall buildings, actually up to 100 feet with the special use permit. And then you saw in that table there was some limitations of 40 feet. So maybe there would be a spot that it might make sense to allow for something that might be a little bit taller than what that airport overlay would call for. So again, the idea with these amendments were to create some flexibility, a little bit more user options as long as the airport were to sign off. Now that doesn't mean that the city would have to approve a plan. Then they would just have to go through the normal site planning process. But at least these amendments would allow, if the airport were to agree, somebody to pursue a project. I hope that makes sense. I know that was a lot. The next amendment that you have in your packet is for vendor trucks. This is something, I guess I want to mention right off the bat, that's already been reviewed by the PSD and the DDA, and those folks have already agreed to this language as well. This is also really on your consent agenda tonight. The other amendments in the general ordinance were kind of coming through with this. Essentially for Udo, what we're doing is adding the definition for the vendor truck, allowing for, I guess what I would describe as a very small expansion of the use of a vendor truck in those form-based code districts that you have in front of you that could allow for up to 6 events a year. The example I think we've been using is maybe somebody wants to have a customer appreciation, that they'd be able to have a food truck at one of those locations in the zoning districts where it's already permitted. Then we were simply trying to add some clarification language in there for the public property, rather than, I think the way it's worded right now, that it all comes through the city manager, that we wanted to have some language in there that allowed for Windmill Garden, the Civic Center, Farmers Market, that those folks that already have a structure that they could provide for an approval. And then finally, that they would have to get their annual license through the clerk's office for a vendor truck. The next page, the next amendment that we have is in regards to family childcare and group childcare in the home. These are changes that are being done to reflect some change in state law. So the state is allowing for a few more children in the home for care, and so we're simply recognizing that in our ordinance so that it would match what is permitted in state law. At the end of the group childcare home, you can see that we're making a change to a reference under that approving authority. That's simply making a correction to get it to the right area, which is just on that next page under group childcare home, where again, we're just making the update to the numbers to coincide with the state changes. The next change is in the manufacturing, high intensity manufacturing. We are simply just removing a reference that's an error that is just referring you to the wrong section. It does not need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and actually 1213 is for the enforcement proceeding. So that doesn't need to be replaced with anything. That can just be simply removed. The next couple changes are for the sign section. Again, I would probably describe these as just clarification more than anything. In the prohibited signs, we already have the comment in there about exceptions or in the area for prohibited signs for billboards, off-premise signs. It's simply listed in each of those individual paragraphs. We thought it would be more clear to just add that description above that and then take out that in the individual paragraphs. On that next page, we simply have a clarification to make sure that you would get approval to put a sign in the right-of-way. And then there's some relettering as a result of that. Just a couple more. Elevated bridges. So this is something that we wanted to put in there really since we approved the LG site. Would you mind flipping to the next one? So this is the LG site plan. I know you are all familiar with this, but I highlighted the area where they do have a couple little bridges that they would like to build out there. And I know you're gonna tell me, well, I think there's already a little bridge or a walkway out there on the west side of the site, and there is. The difference is where that area is highlighted, you might remember, we put a property line in there because of the Renaissance zone. So what we wanted to craft here was an allowance for those bridges that they don't need to meet a setback requirement, so that they would be able to span that property line. So the way that text amendment is written, it is very narrow. It really only applies to a situation like this. Of course, it wouldn't just be LG. There would be other users, I suppose, if they fell into these same scenarios. I guess I'm just making the point that the way it's written is very narrow. This would not, so if you're familiar with, Van Andel Arena in Grand Rapids, where they might have some of those walks over roads, this would not apply to that. We would have to do something else if we wanted to, use something like that in our ordinance. This really is pretty focused for the LG site. I think we do just have a couple more here. So the next one is ADUs. This is really just changing definitions. We have, our definition of ADU is different in our definition section than it is in the section where we talk about ADUs. So we simply want those two to match. So we're using the definition that's circled there, the one that is in the ADU section. We would simply transfer that into the definition section. So we simply want those two to match. And then finally, accessory structures. This is the non-conforming section of UDO. And what we wanted to do here was with the development, all the changes in UDO, as you can imagine, you do a complete rewrite, you're gonna make some things non-conforming. And that certainly is intentional. But one of the things that we found was in areas where maybe we have and this has been maybe more so in the form-based code districts where maybe we have a single-family home is now non-conforming, now grandfathered in. We wanted to provide for the ability for those folks to be able to do things like sheds or fences. We do allow for some expansions of non-conforming structures. This only applies for residential uses. So we simply wanted to allow for those folks to be able to do something that we consider to be pretty minor and wouldn't extend the life of some sort of non-conforming situation, but would give them the ability to do what everybody else is able to do. That is UDO 6.
All right. Thank you. Are there questions or comments from council members? Yes, Mr. Freeman.
And I'm not sure if it's for you or someone else, so we can pick whoever picks it up. I'm questioning on the LG Chem, the whole bridge, change in the language of UDO. I'm wondering if that's necessary to change it in UDO or just to an exception, because it's so narrow, and to have it in a UDO that applies to the entire. I'm wondering if that's necessary.
Yeah, that's a fair question. You don't know what you're going to get, right? Zoning Board of Appeals. I mean, you don't know. Those standards are tough, and for good reason. That's not something you want to grant all the time. I would say, backing all the way up to when they first came in, I mean, we knew this was something that we wanted to do. I think because as we were doing some research, because you think, well, maybe we'd make it a little bit bigger to capture some of these other ways that you might be able to envision a bridge to be used. That got to be a little bit more complicated and a little bit more than maybe, where we wanted to be. So we thought we at least, as LG is out there building, we wanted to at least make sure we took care of that. So I guess it's a really long way of saying I could see us expanding that allowance for some other options, but right now we certainly wanted to take care of a project really that's under construction.
Other
I don't know if I
questions,
answered your
comments?
question.
Yeah, other questions or comments from council members? I just want to thank you, Steve. I was at the Michigan Municipal League Conference today and talked to one of the consultants that helped us work through this UDO process. And I kind of jokingly said to him, well, tonight we're doing round 6 of our amendments to the UDO. And he looked a little crestfallen, like, oh, we didn't get it absolutely perfect the very first time we did it. And this is 350 plus pages. I can't keep that in my head now anymore, but there's a lot there. And it was a long process, and we are bound to need to make adjustments and changes to something that's a living document. As you guys are using it and going through it and actually putting it into practice, we're finding out that there are areas that we may have neglected or not thought through completely. So thank you for going through in I don't want to say excruciating detail, but in detail, in making sure that this is as good as it possibly can be. And as we chuckle up here, like round 6 of all of these little changes, I am sure there will be more coming as we make sure that this document is as functional as it can be for the city. So thank you and everyone in the planning department for helping out through this process. Great. Yes, Mr. Freeman.
I'm
Yes.
thinking it's for Ron. Just a follow-up to the question I asked earlier. Would it be appropriate to have this, what's needed for LG? We've already approved it. We're all on fire for LG to make that all take place. But I'm wondering if it's necessary to have that narrow of a guideline in our UDO for one company versus having to just do an appeal and go a whole other trail to make that happen for them.
It may not be always the best to develop a zoning ordinance provision that applies citywide to do it for one company. And this is not necessarily just for one company. But what it is necessary here because it deals with the setbacks between properties. And in order to make this project work, we had to have this property divided into 2 properties. That creates a setback requirement on each side of the property line. And as I see this amendment, it allows for 0 setback for the bridge, which otherwise wouldn't be allowed. And then to take that to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance, it probably doesn't necessarily meet the variance standards for that. So it's appropriate to have it in the ordinance. I hope that answers your question.
It does.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments from council members? All right, thank you. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the text amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, number 6?
Move to approve.
Moved by Coronado. Is there support?
Support?
Support by Hoekstra. Any discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes?
Corbin. Yes. Coronado,
Yes.
Arnsworth,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item is one that was taken off of the consent agenda. Item 12B2, the fiscal year 2022 annual report of the Planning Commission. Mr. Peterson, good to see you again, sir.
Thank you, sir. So I did put a couple slides in here, so hopefully, certainly answer any questions, but hopefully I can cover maybe what you're looking for. So the annual report is something that we're required to submit to you every year. It's really part of the planning enabling legislation, so we put this together. Admittedly, it's probably a little bit more used on the staff level, but just some highlights real quick. This is a chart that we use to kind of track our work plan, the Planning Commission's work plan for the year. Some highlights that I would point out there. In the transportation section, we approved the non-motorized transportation plan. In the neighborhood visioning section, we completed the South Shore visioning process. And in the economic development, no surprise, we completed the redevelopment ready certification process. So I know there's some other stuff in there, but those are what I would probably describe as the big highlights from the progress from our work plan. Projects, so kind of like to track these. I like to use the bar graphs just to kind of see trends. So what you see here are site plan projects that have gone through the Planning Commission and administrative review. So we had about a 30% jump in projects from the year before. I don't know if we'll see that again, but I would probably be willing to bet on the administrative review approvals will continue to go up. So I too was at a conference meeting with some of my colleagues, and to describe to them that, what we can do administratively, they're just blown away by that. And we're really hearing positive feedbacks from the development community of, what that does for them as well. So I'd be surprised if that number doesn't continue to go up. The rest of the kind of the next few pages in the report are kind of we just use it to provide a brief summary of all of the projects that come through for the year. Again, that's probably a little bit more of a staff tool, but it allows us to kind of quickly find projects, do a little bit of research. But why I put this map on the screen, Alex in the GIS department is great, right? He can create this map in no time. I give him that huge list, and he plots out this map, and it's just kind of fun to see where the projects occurred. So you can see the legend in the bottom. Doesn't capture every single project, but kind of gives you an idea for where projects are occurring. I know it's a little bit hard to read. You know, you look close, you can see some color dots kind of on top of each other if there was a rezoning and a site plan, you know, all of that kind of stuff together. Next couple pages of the report, we put a link in there from the non-motorized transportation plan. And again, using some of the graphs to kind of just show what was approved over the years. So we have one that, with housing being such a prominent focus in our master plan, you know, we want to show what was happening through the year. So we have this graph in there to kind of show you how many units we approved. Admittedly, you know, most of those units came through with the second phase of Shoreline Flats, but again, it's just kind of interesting so you can track those. I don't have it in the slide deck here, but then we did provide a similar graph that we've been tracking the last couple of years for affordable housing. So that's another one that in future years you'll see a little bit bigger chart like this that'll track affordable units. And then with redevelopment ready, there were several commitments that came along with the redevelopment ready process, and some of those we incorporated into the annual report. So one of the things that we are doing now is sending out a survey to people who have come through the approval process to get their feedback to see how we're doing. I won't say it was 100% unanimous, but the feedback we've been getting has been very positive, both from their reaction to working through the city as well as working with Udo itself. So we'll continue to have that information built into the annual report as well. So that's a quick summary of the Planning Commission's annual report.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Questions, comments from council members? Ms. Raymond?
Yeah, thank you, Steve, for presenting that. I just think I realize that the Planning Commission is probably in front of us more than any other committee, but I think it's just nice to see it all in one package and all of the work that group does and your team does throughout the year. So thanks for all that work. And
You're welcome.
yeah.
Anyone else? Do we need official action on this?
For me, it's just a receive and file, so it's just.
All right. What is the pleasure of council in regard to receiving and filing the annual report from the Planning Commission? Moved by Byrd. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Vreeman.
Oh.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All approved, same sign. Motion carries. Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda, the second item that was removed from the consent agenda and placed on regular agenda, item 12E 3.1, Parks and Recreation Playground Grant for Moran Park. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, and this is always a fun one, so, and let me just say, you know, there's not a science between what we put on consent agenda versus what we put on regular. Sometimes if it's like, boy, these are all kind of straightforward type things, we might take some things off consent and put it in an agenda just to highlight them. But as you give us heads up and say, hey, we might want to pull something off and highlight it, that's fantastic. Never annoys us in the slightest. It's nice to have a heads up. And I think Andy's probably pretty excited to be able to highlight this project anyway, even if he's staying a little bit later.
Yeah, that's all right.
So Andy, why don't you talk about this grant, the submittal, kind of how we put it all together, and hopefully the really good outcome we'll get for our citizens.
Sure. Thanks, Keith. Mr. Mayor, City Council, thanks for having me tonight. And yes, I'm here tonight to talk about a pretty cool project we've got coming up next spring, hopefully, and to seek some authorization from you to apply for a grant and then accept any grant funds that come with that and or equipment. You may recall over the last 6 years or so, we've done something similar to this with Lakeview Park last year and Van Raalte Farm Playgrounds. And then a few years before that, we did and redid Rosa Parks Green with this same program. So once a year, Game Time offers this grant, end of year sale, they call it a grant, where we can utilize and take advantage of a really good thing. Last year at Lakeview Park and Van Raalte Farm, we had not only the grant that we were able to get, but we were also able to fundraise and had a significant family donor that helped provide some really cool extra stuff at Lakeview Park that we wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. So this winter, my hope is to continue that trend and go after some additional funds through some donations and some in-kind services to help us build a playground. This particular playground, and you can see it on a slide, this is going to greatly expand Moran Park's play space availability and footprint in the park. Currently, the two pictures, or the two areas to the top of the screen, are the existing playground. The big rectangular piece is what we would be adding. This playground is about a $300,000 playground, and we'd be able to, if we were successful with the grant, save about just over $100,000 on that, which is pretty substantial. The rest of the fund would be about $200,000 to fund it, and that'd be funded by the MCIF, Municipal Capital Improvement Fund, as well as some funds from the Community Development Block Grant Program that Mark Cornelis oversees. So we're super excited about it. This is kind of an earlier rendition. The playground pieces are exactly the same, but I'm sorry to tell you, Mr. Mayor, it's not going to have quite as much orange in it as it shows on the screens. The slides will be blue, we're thinking at this point. It was
You know we're going to be voting on this.
Yeah,
Right?
well, hey, well, I had to tell you don't get your hopes up, but yeah. So this playground is really cool. We've done a few things in this that are a little bit different than we have at other play spaces around the community. We have 17 playgrounds in our system, and this will be the very first one, well, the second one, because we have the playground at Smallenburg that is inclusive and it's accessible on all levels. This playground will actually be called and labeled an inclusive play space. We've developed it through some feedback that we've gotten through different community members and some families that use our playgrounds with a request to have some more inclusive elements there, whether that be accessibility via wheelchair, walkers, visually impaired, hearing impaired. So we've added some of those pieces into this space, and I'm super excited about it. We've got some ramps that go up into the playground. If you're able to transfer from a wheelchair to a slide, you can use that. We've worked in some musical pieces, which we don't have anywhere else throughout the playground, little pods in all the spaces. And then also some swing sets. One thing at Moran, if you know, and if you've had kids or grandkids or family members that have gone there aren't any swings for grown-ups or big kids. There's some toddler swings and bucket swings, but nothing like that. So we've added those. And one cool thing, in the picture up in the upper left-hand corner, you can kind of see the orange. There's an orange seat, and then on the far right of the swing set, there's two swings that kind of are facing each other. And those are called expression swings. That allows not only two people to swing at the same time, but also it has a little bit of an intergenerational play element to it, which we don't have anywhere else, where an adult grandparent could swing with their grandkids or their sons or daughters or whoever, and as well as the orange seat allows somebody that is in a wheelchair or can't sit on a regular bucket swing to sit in a swing and swing. So it's pretty cool. We're really excited about it for this opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Andy. Questions, comments from council members? Lynn?
I
Yeah.
love, oops.
Yeah, go ahead, Nikki.
The all-inclusive aspect of it. I think that's wonderful. That one person would come through about his granddaughter, was it? Who was
Yeah. Yep.
blind or visually impaired.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you've heard,
Yeah.
you've listened. And
We take that into consideration, take it real seriously, and we're excited about the opportunity to do it.
That's good.
So I think going forward, I think this will be a model. We've got a few other playgrounds that are destined to get replaced over the next 4 or 5 years, and we'll continue that trend.
And that reflects the diversity of our community.
Absolutely.
In many more ways. Thank you.
Lynn?
She said what I was going to say. So you're good. Thanks for staying, Andy. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Mr. Corbin?
I'm going to triple that. This is exciting. I've been saying this for a long time, and I appreciate what your staff has done here. Remarkable. When I look at some of the pictures, just knowing that a child can start at one end and work, at least get halfway through and interact with those other children, that's special. It really is. It's special to not only the child, but the parents who are watching and helping their child maneuver through their handicap. But and then also you mentioned the sensory items. I was going to ask the question, and that was just wonderful that you were able to provide those sensory items. So hats off to you guys. This is a remarkable project. I would have probably taken it off the agenda if you didn't. So thank you for doing so.
Mr. Hoekstra?
Quick question, is the ground area going to be similar to the other playground that's absorbable but more solid?
Yeah, currently, we're planning on doing just engineered wood fiber here, which we have at about 95% of our playgrounds. If I can find somebody to help fund it, we'll do it.
Oh,
That's how the last one worked. That's one of the, I guess, Cadillac options of playgrounds now. It's super awesome, but it's super expensive.
Okay.
And that increases the cost. It probably would double the cost, I would, off the top of my head. So it's really neat and really awesome, but it's expensive.
Well, let the world know the
That's right.
opportunity's there.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Yes, Ms. Coronado?
Hey, Andy, thanks for the great work. So has this all-inclusive space, is there local, is there one around us, is there modeled around here? Where'd you guys get this idea from?
Well, it's not new. It's just we're trying it here. We have a Boundless. It's called the Boundless Playground at Smallenburg Park. It was built. Oh man, it's probably been 20 years ago now, or close to 20 years ago at Smallenburg. Rotary Club helped build that. So that was really probably the leading edge of this kind of program and this build. Game Time has been building these kinds of structures for a while now as a company, and they've got more options than what we see here. You could go totally crazy and build more, and they have other things. So like I said, as we go forward into the future, I think we'll see this element at all of our playgrounds when we redo them or refresh them. So yeah, I don't know if they have any currently in the West Michigan area. They probably do, but I could look that up or find out, but yeah, I'm not
No,
sure.
that's great. I mean, I wouldn't have thought of that. I don't have any special needs family or anything, and let alone I haven't been to the park. These parks were the ones I've taken my kids to, but they
Yeah.
are now 22, 24, and 30 something.
Sure.
And so I have a granddaughter, but no, that's great that we're being inclusive. I think I had just read in the Sentinel about how children of autism, their families feel like they're isolated already. So I imagine this is another barrier that if you don't have it, or you don't have someone that has special needs, you don't know that and you don't see that, so you take it for granted.
Mhm.
So thank you for thinking of everyone in the community. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And I think that's one of our department's main goals is to have everybody have an opportunity to play and participate. And so this is just one more step in that direction. It's not perfect yet, but we're getting there, and it's work in progress. So
But it's a start, so
Absolutely.
thank you, thank
Yeah.
you.
Any other comments, questions? I just have one, and no, it's not about the orange, although I was very excited when I saw it, but hey, when you're looking at a grant like this, you get what you can get. I was thinking that it was designed in the colors of the city's logo. When I looked at the different
yeah,
colors that were
sure.
there, I thought it pulled that in. But yeah, the orange did catch my eye. But you've mentioned Game Time a couple of times. I want to give some kudos to Sinclair Recreation
Absolutely.
as well. Great local company that has been a
Yeah.
really big partner with this.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful that we've got that opportunity to be able to take advantage of, that year-end sale or grant or
Yeah.
however it is that you want to look at it, as well as the members of the public who have stepped up to kind of fill the gap on a lot of this. I think
sure.
that's a wonderful thing for the people of the community.
It's great, and we wouldn't be able to do what we do now without that. And you're right with Sinclair. They're a local company, and they've been really, really great with us, great to us, and great to work with. And they're excited about doing this. We're going to do a community build, so there's another plug. So next spring, bring your wrenches out and your gloves, and we'll have a build day. I know it's in Quincy's neighborhood, so we'll be out there building for a couple days, and it's a really cool and fun time and experience to do. So.
Yeah, make sure you give us a heads up on that. My son used to work
Absolutely
for
will.
Sinclair, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get him in town. He knows how to
Cool.
work the wrenches on that equipment
great.
as well. Great. Anybody else?
Quincy.
Yes, Mr. Byrd.
Yes, it is in my neighborhood. My kids have grown up there. They still go there frequently. Now they go without parental guidance. They can go down and hang out and have fun. They spend hours down there. My question was, and I didn't even think about it till just after the mayor was speaking, but are we doing any other upgrades to the park?
Yeah, so there's actually some substantial stuff happening at Moran over the next year. We're going to be redoing the tennis courts and pickleball courts next summer. That was a project that was supposed to happen this fall, but due to some issues with getting the supplies that we needed to have that be done, the contractor couldn't pull the project off until next summer. So that'll be happening. We've already added a little bit of new fencing to the park. My recreation team is bound and determined to build a futsal court there, which will be in part of where in this particular slide where the basketball court is.
A what?
It's called futsal. So it's a really small soccer field that is built on mostly asphalt parking lots throughout the world. Some places have turf type fields. And you may recall, I think we came to council a few years ago
The
with that.
officer, one of the
Correct,
officers?
yeah, Officer Mendoza
Yes.
was spearheading that project. And so we want to build that still, but it'll look a little different than what we came with before. And so that's going to happen there as well. So yeah, it's going to be, we're putting a ton of money and funds and effort into Moran Park, and it already is a destination park, but I think with, the aquatic center across the street, all the families and things that use that facility for swimming and things like that, there'll be an opportunity for families to come over and play in the middle of a meet or something like that. And if you're playing pickleball or tennis, your kids can play in the playground, and it's going to be really neat.
Great. Are the walls gonna stay?
That's to be determined yet. I think one is coming down for sure. That's going to be in the middle of the futsal court, so one will definitely come down.
All right, I've heard some heavy opinions on keeping
Yeah, it goes
them,
both ways.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yep. You like everything. Yes, that's for sure.
All right, great.
Mr. Freeman.
Just kind of a broad comment, Andy. I just so appreciate your commitment and your passion of everything you represent in our city. You don't stand before us a lot. When you do, it's very specific of a different area of what you oversee. And so thank you. And for all the plantings that's taking place right now, planning for spring. So
You're
thanks
welcome.
for your work. We really appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments, questions? Yes, Ms. Coronado.
I had a question. There used to be a chess board downtown. Did you oversee that? Did your
Nope.
department?
That's a private piece of land.
Okay, private?
Yep.
I just wondered, I was at Mackinac Island and they had one at the Grand. I'm just wondering if maybe somewhere at Moran Park or one of our parks, is that an option? Not that I play chess, but, I hear it's
Yeah.
I want to learn it, but
Sure.
again, that would be a great
Yeah, we can.
pastime to bring back.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Adult swings first.
There you go.
I'm really excited.
All right. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate
Thank
it. Yeah. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the approval of the grant application submission for the playground at Moran Park?
Motion to accept the Parks and Recreation Report and the playground for Moran Park, item 12E 3.1.
Support.
Moved by Corbin, support by Byrd. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kathy, would you please call the roll on this one?
Byrd,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Coronado,
Yes.
Arnsworth,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item, 12E 6.1, gifts. Kathy, would you please review the gifts for us?
The city manager's office is pleased to report the following gifts: Parks and Recreation Sal Press Scholarship Program, anonymous donors, cash receipts, reporting dates September 12 through October 2, $57. Department of Public Safety Services, 2022 Victim Services Unit Grant Award Program, MSA and Michigan Department of Health and Human Services grant funding, $979.59. It is recommended that these donations be accepted with appreciation, credited to the appropriate account, and an expression of gratitude be forwarded to said donors.
Great, thank you, Kathy. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the gifts?
Move to approve said gifts with tokens of our appreciation.
Moved by Coronado, is there support?
Support.
Support by Aaronsource. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 12E 6.2, approval of the sale of Parcel K, West Michigan Airport Authority. Mr. Van Beek.
You know, I'm thinking back through, there's some themes and there's some segues tonight. We had redevelopment ready community. We had a lot of businesses investing. There were a lot of great questions of one in particular, COPES. We talked about airport overlay zones. We actually did on the consent agenda some management agreements behind it with the airport. And what you have before you tonight is almost like a mix of all of those things in one. So Matt has been working on this, and why don't you tie a bow on all of this for us, Matt?
I will very much try to. Thanks, Keith, and good evening, everyone. So this is Parcel K. This is kind of the odd parcel that was owned by the city, overseen by the airport authority, but purchased with FAA funds. If you remember that, it's been 6 or 8 months since it was declared surplus and put up for sale. We had kind of an unrealistic offer early on, and more recently we've had an offer that's in line with the appraisal. So that offer is for $760,000 for this piece of property. That is slightly under the appraised value of $770,000, but well within the 5% that the FAA requires that sale to be. So the FAA has quite a few requirements. This is actually a fairly complex and complicated process to get through this. So we've been working with Bernie Merkel. You all know Bernie. He's helped us out in the past to get this property up for sale. Councilmember Byrd, you had asked a little bit earlier about Coop Incorporated expansion plans. And I have a sneaking suspicion I know a little bit about that based on the sale here tonight. So they are clearly the ones that are offering on the parcel. So it has been through, we took it to the West Michigan Airport Authority Board. Councilmember Hoekstra was in attendance at that meeting. I believe Mr. Corbin was not there, but the rest of the board did unanimously approve a recommendation to City Council to approve the sale of this property to Coops Incorporated in the amount of $760,000, contingent on FAA approval, Coops board approval at their November meeting, and of course the city attorney approval as well.
All right. Any questions for staff? Yeah, Mr. Corbin.
Thanks for outing me out there, Matt. Appreciate it. Hey, there is a page 2, though, under the recommendations. Is there something missing in the attached document? I just want to make sure nothing was missing for the record, that there's a blank page 2 of the recommendations. Action request form.
Don't.
I think everything's covered on that first page.
Okay,
Yeah.
just an error in the
Sometimes it's
printing?
just if it thinks you're just about there, then it says
Okay.
page 2 in there.
Just for the record, so if somebody were to ask if there was something missing that we didn't cover, but thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments for staff? Yes, Mr. Hoekstra.
I just want to say Brother Corbin is almost always at those meetings, and I think there was probably some nuclear incident or something in Allegan that precluded him from being there. But just to say that this is, to say it's been a red herring is maybe a slightly overstatement, but we've been waiting a long time to come to a point of disposition of this property. Waiting on the FAA actually has been the biggest obstacle in this, because they've just been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. So on behalf of the authority, very much looking forward to the end of this process and the use of those funds for even better things in the future. So just want to stick up for the brother here.
Ms. Coronado.
I just had a question. So Coops was in here for a tax abatement. So is this to say that they may be even back again in the future with this purchase? I'm guessing yes. Great, great, good news.
Any other questions, comments for staff? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of council in regard to this item? Moved by Corbin, is there support?
Support.
Support by Coronado. Any I don't feel so badly. Yeah. It's not even that late yet. Yeah. All right, we have a motion and support. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Freeman.
Yes.
Corbin. Coronado.
Yes.
Arnsworth.
Yes.
Hoekstra.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Byrd.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item, 12E 6.3, City of Holland Ice Rink Fund, approval of an agency fund agreement with the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland area. Mr. Van Beek.
Good to see that we can do the business of the city and have fun at the same time. And this is fun. So the next three items that are on your agenda are really, they are all related. So before we go through those individually, I just want to make sure that I know all of you are aware, but just to make sure that the public continues to stay aware of what we're moving towards. And really, I want to highlight, even for all of you, like the multiple hurdles, or as Matt and I would say, those pool balls that we're just kind of pushing from one end and just keep pushing them, and eventually they start falling in the pockets. We have dreamed about this particular project, even though we've dreamed about Window on the Waterfront and activating that space and, you know, really doing a redesign of 6th Street and activating and kind of reimagining some of that industrial space on the private side. But then with such a marvelous gentleman, or the word is always wonderful, the wonderful gentleman of Frank Cry, and really the amazing lead gift that he gave. We've been imagining the place for this ice rink for years. Matt and I still remember talking about this probably a couple months after I started. And we've had community conversations about looking at different locations, and we really just kept coming to Window on the Waterfront as being the location. One of the things, and I'm just going to give you a little extra, you know, you didn't even bargain for it tonight. We had a wonderful day on Monday. And that wonderful day was really the result of some really good advice and some really good work by the man sitting next to me, Ron Vanderveen, where I think you know that we've been a little frustrated, a little growing concerned, Matt especially, because one of the things is we've always we've been identifying and really growing the public sentiment of this is the place that we really think this amenity should be built. But the reality is, historically, this is in the location of the city town dump and a dredge disposal site on top of it to just make it a little bit more interesting. And even though back in the 80s and 90s, we had a whole set of discussions and, quite frankly, interim agreements with the state of Michigan, then known as the Department of Environmental Quality, now known as EGLE, and then by extension, the Army Corps of Engineers, that, you know, future recreational uses and other buildings in here were okay. And then you all, it was one of the steps, you authorized that we did very thorough environmental lookups in here and engineering in here. And that came back as a really great thumbs up approach, that this site is appropriate for this type of use. We had a little bit of traction issues with Eagle to get that move forward. And Ron's done a fantastic job of being a complete and utter bulldog on this. And we are in the home stretch of that. So we were very excited about that Monday and just wanted to give you that a heads up. Because that merged with the 3 items before you tonight, really, we're getting there, folks. We're really, I guess, contingent on your approval tonight, I will say that. But we're putting all the pieces together where the fundraising, getting the final construction drawings, and really engineering this and getting it to the point where we can turn dirt next year. This is a major step in that element tonight, and we're excited. So the first item before you is a specific agreement with the Community Foundation of Holland, Zealand. Fundamentally, appropriately, I'm not bothered by it at all. The reality is people that give donations, big and small, quite often would prefer to give it to an organization that we have in the Holland, Zealand area, which is perfect, and it's the Community Foundation. Quite frankly, from a city perspective, we're just as happy as those gifts are given to an organization that's really set up for that type of purpose instead of us handling those donations directly and all of the bookwork and everything associated with that. So the agreement that you have in front of you is basically a funding agreement with the Community Foundation that they would do that, so that as we have further discussions with the community and people want to participate in this community amenity and participate in the vision of Frank Cry, that they can do that through the Community Foundation. And there's a lot of standard portions in this agreement, but there's also some specific where appropriately the Community Foundation would be reimbursed for some of those costs that they incur, with a minimum and maximum in that. So that is the agreement that you have in front of you. First of 3 things, Matt will report on the other 2. But again, this agreement will basically allow us and will really ignite us moving forward with doing fundraising and inviting people to become part of this vision.
Great. Questions, comments from council members? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of council in regard to item 12E 6.3, the approval of an agency fund agreement with the Community Foundation of the Holland Zealand area for the City of Holland Ice Rink Fund?
Move to set up that fund with the Community Foundation.
Moved by Vreeman. Is there support? Support by Byrd. Any discussion? Seeing none. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Corbin? Coronado?
Yes.
Arnsworth?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Vreeman?
Yes?
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 12E 6.4, approval of contract for services with GMB Architects and B32 or B32 Degrees Architects. Oh, I get that, B32 Degrees. Architects for the design and construction documentation for the City of Holland facility. Mr. Van Beek.
In public.
I just have to pause there. That was good. So I'm going to ask Matt Van Dyken, your get-her-done guy, to talk about not only the specifics of what this agreement would do, but also really what it represents in moving this overall project forward.
Yes, thank you. So Keith's monologue there to start this off was interesting. I had in my notes that up to this point, this has been a dream, right? So Frank had a dream based on a visit to South Haven to a rink that Andy and I went and visited, and we're like, let's dream a little bit bigger than that. So we went through a process. The community participated, and the vision that you see before you is really the community's dream. So we've got dreams, and now we're at the point where those dreams become a reality. So the first item in front of you is a contract with Gmb Architects and Engineers. They would subcontract with below 32 degrees, the Fahrenheit, the freezing ice company out of Minnesota, to help design and actually create the construction documentation to build this thing, to build the vision and the dream. That contract is in the amount of $473,000 plus up to $37,000 in reimbursable expenses. This is not a cheap contract, but this is not a small project either. This is going to be, I think, a gem in the heart of our community, in the heart of our downtown. you know, Keith and I have both been doing our jobs for a long time, and I always tell people, any project we do, I will get a number of people that will come up to me and say, Matt, that is the stupidest thing anyone has ever done. And not one person has said that about this project. So we're very excited to bring this recommendation to you, that you approve that with GMB, subcontractor B32 Degrees, and we begin the process of actually creating the design documentation and construction documentation so that we can take this out to bid.
Thanks, Matt. Questions for staff? Comments? Lynn?
Yeah, how did we choose GMB? I know that they've been a good partner of the city, but was there an RFP process? How did we land on that?
There is not. Council can approve professional services agreements. Their expertise at walking along with us to this point, we felt there was value to continue that relationship with them. I just will say about half the contract approximately is to GMB, and the other half is to B32 Degrees. So it's about a 50-50 payment proposal.
Other comments, questions? Ms. Aaronsource?
Yes, I appreciate the statement by B32 Degrees about using sustainable and renewable techniques in their statement and their letter that they sent. I think that's and waste heat and all this. I think that's impressive. That's the way we want to go, and it's so nice that there are these companies out there now that are doing this in every aspect of construction. So good on us.
Thank you, and I do think that there will be some pretty cool opportunities that will come out of this design process that we'll be able to come back to you and say, hey, this is the way this is going to be done, and it's going to be sustainable, and it's going to be something that make you even more proud about the project.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Other comments, questions? Great, thank you, Matt. What's the pleasure of council in regard to item 12?
Move to approve.
Moved by Vreeman, is there support?
Except
Support by Coronado, any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Coronado?
Yes.
Arnsworth?
yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Vreeman?
Yes.
Corbin?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Item 12E 6.5, approval of contract for services with GDK Construction for the construction management services for the construction of the City of Holland ICE facility. Mr. Van Beek.
Mr. Van Dyken.
So this is the second part of it. You design it and then you build it. We did approach GDK Construction. You're all, I'm sure, very familiar with them. As to if they would honor the same terms of the contract that we bid out for the fire station, for the construction management and construction of the ice rink. They said yes, that letter is included in your packet. That was a bid process that came back to you guys and you approved that recommendation for the fire station construction management. As you can see in the packet, it's not to exceed pre-construction of $23,650, a 3.4% fee on the cost of construction, and $44.50 per week for site supervision. So competitive terms, we know that because we've already bid it out. GDK has been a partner. We work with them at the Civic Center. Obviously, we're working with them currently on the fire stations. And we're very comfortable recommending that you approve a construction management services contract with GDK Construction.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments from council members? What is the pleasure of council in regard to item 12E 6.5?
Move to approve the GDK contract agreement.
Moved by Vreeman. Is there support? Support. Support by Coronado. Any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Arnsworth?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Vreeman?
Yes.
Corbin?
Yes.
Coronado?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Item 13, communications from the city manager. Mr. Van Beek.
You bet. That was just fun, by the way. So just a couple real quick things because you've heard a lot of me from me tonight. I think I heard that. Some others, very happy to be part of the Michigan Municipal League convention this week. Good learning, good networking. So that's always fun to hear and be a participant of. I'll tell you, just as I saw kind of what I always say the system, but the system is made up of our people. I think you saw a lot of examples tonight of how our people play off each other, they work together, they're innovative, they're getting things done. So kudos to our team. One thing that was fun, I think you can, if you want to, you can see a video of that with our production team always putting stuff out. I'm a little bit behind. I think I've heard that they have the LED tulip bulb planting thing out there, so I'm eager to see that. But a lot of fun on Friday. We had the City Hall support of tulip planting day on Friday. We had a crew out on Friday morning and another crew out on Friday afternoon, and we had a lot of fun, and we got it done too. We did have fun, didn't we, Andy? Now the only thing is there were a few bruised feelings, I will admit, because Andy and his team, they said, you guys can help. We love for you to help and thank you, but they were like, hands off, you can't do the bed around the fountain. So apparently we have to up our game before we really get those prime spots. So we're working on that, but that was a lot of fun. And then finally, just to highlight, and it seems appropriate as we talked about redevelopment ready communities tonight and some of the requirements that I think are very appropriate in that. Study session next week is a little bit different. And it's a little bit different because very specifically as part of that redevelopment ready community process is that we get some of the various boards and communities that are involved in planning and redevelopment together periodically. There's not really like a very specific, like, boy, we got to wrestle this topic to the ground or anything. It's really just an opportunity for all those groups, volunteer boards and alike to get together. So we're going to try to make it where it doesn't go on for a huge long amount of time. We're going to try to make it a little, you might even be able to eat some during the meeting or something. And we're going to have that right in this room. So I look forward to that. We've got a lot of the groups coming together, and hopefully we'll kind of keep it compacted to where maybe we'll be on our way in an hour and a half. So we're looking forward to that. And just a heads up on that. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Wonderful, thank you. Next item on the agenda, appointments and communications from the mayor. I do have a couple of appointment recommendations. I would ask the council please approve the appointment of Jordan Neal to the International Relations Commission for a partial term. Said partial term expiring June 30, 2025. Mr. Neal will replace Commissioner Russ Miller, who chose not to serve another term after his first term expired on June 30, 2022. And I would also ask that council please approve the reappointment of Craig Rich to the Compensation Commission for his fourth full term, said full term expiring October 30, 2026. And that is a recommendation, and I would ask for recommendation for council or motion on that regard.
So move to get both.
Great, thank you,
I'll say it
Mr.
that way.
Thank you, Mr. Reeman. There's a motion by Mr. Reeman. Is there support of Mr. Reeman's motion?
Support.
Support by Aaron Source. Any discussion? And all of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And I do have a proclamation this evening, proclamation in regard to Extra Mile Day. Whereas Holland, Michigan is a community which acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas Holland, Michigan is a community which encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And whereas Holland, Michigan is a community which chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who go the extra mile to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas Holland, Michigan acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile America to create 550 extra mile cities in America and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 1, 2022. Now, therefore, I, Nathan Box, Mayor of the City of Holland, Michigan, and members of the Holland City Council do proclaim November 1, 2022 Extra Mile Day. And I urge everyone in the community to take time on this day to not only go the extra mile in his or her own life, but also acknowledge all those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, country, or world a better place. Given under my hand and the seal of the City of Holland this 19th day of October 2022, Mayor Nathan Box. And that is all I have this evening. Item 15, appointments, motions, and communications from council members. Any communications from council members this evening? Seeing none, there's just one more motion I would entertain at this time.
To adjourn.
Moved by Freeman, is there support?
Support.
Support by Hoekstra. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
We still want to leave, right?